Hello, everybody, and welcome or welcome back to the podcast. So, I'm Nick, your host. In the background is Lilu the Loud. And yeah, so right off the bat, um, I knew this day might come, but it's been a little hard to admit. But I think I might actually have to dial back, like I predicted way early on, the amount of podcasts that I do in a given week. Um, like let's call a spade. Nobody's watching anyway, so I mean, the few people that are awesome and have subscribed, bless you for doing that and for watching. And beyond that, it isn't like I have a contract or sponsors or anything besides the ones that I choose to do. Like shout out to Josh, at sanducustoms.com. And so it's getting to be the point where I've been making this priority so that I didn't stop doing it, because I always don't finish what I start, and it was a point of personal pride. And my girl's birthday came up, and in the times that I could have been possibly focusing on presents to get her and stuff, I was doing this. And I guess I had a bit to drink. Cheers. And kind of had a little confession time with her, where I was just like, I'm sorry I haven't gotten you a present yet. I've just been so busy and stuff. And so she thought it was funny and everything, but it was still something where it was just like, okay, well, obviously I should make my priorities, and I obviously think this is something that's important, but at the same time, there can be a lull every once in a while if I have something going on where I need to plan ahead, like the person that I love's birthday or something. So yeah, so I'm gonna try, but basically the reason why I'm saying that is because as I'm recording this, it's the day that I'm also going to be putting it out. So it's Monday. It's actually Monday this time, so I don't have to do any of that weird, hey, how's your weekend? Even though I'm recording it on a Wednesday, and I know it's not going to be put out until the next Monday. So that's cool. So now I can genuinely say, hey, how was your weekend? I hope it was good. And yeah, we did a little something for a birthday. We went to the among other things, we went to the mall of all places, and it was just really weird because I realized it's been 1 week since you looked at me. No, it's been well beyond the year of the pandemic. Like obviously nobody's really been to a mall, and during the pandemic, but like even before that, it's like malls were already a dying breed. When I was in Tucson, actually one of my favorite places was, it was right across work, and it was basically an abandoned mall because a bigger newer one had opened up just down the street. It was super eerie though, because the building itself was still in use. At the very bottom there was a mattress place, I believe it was, but towards the top, either the top floor or the second to top floor, there was still this movie theater. It was the weirdest movie theater too, because they had this weird gimmick where it was out of movie theaters. The movie was out of movie theaters, but it hadn't actually gone to DVD yet, and so they would play the movies that were in that special place in between before they started dropping it on both the streaming service as well as the movie theater. It was just super interesting that they somehow managed to get like an early or late copy of the movie, whichever way you want to look at it, and they would show it for ridiculously low prices. Like we're talking like a couple dollars. You know what I mean? Like whereas even before that time, like like double digits at minimum for a ticket, right? It's like $10 really. We're talking like two, three, $4. I can't remember exactly what, but it was definitely single digits, and it was definitely super cheap, and it was just a cool thing. But my favorite part about going there, not just the free movies, because I'm a movie file or phobe or whatever the heck. No, phobe would be no. Movie phobe would be if I was afraid of movies, which I am very much not. I will flock to one, even if and especially if it's going to be a bad one, because I do enjoy the occasional so bad it's good movie. As long as you go into knowing that, there's nothing worse than going into a movie that you actually expected to be good and then it was bad. Because even if it was so bad that it was good, because you didn't go into it with that mindset, you don't appreciate it and you think it's a piece of crap and you're just like, oh my god, I want that time back. I want my life back. Like, for example, I love Eddie Murphy, but The Adventures of Pluto Nash, the only enjoyment I had out of that movie was that I got to listen to How Did This Get Made poop on it. That was genuinely the most amount of entertainment I got out of it. I enjoyed, I think, two jokes out of the entire movie, and even then, it wasn't exactly like a laugh out loud thing. And then the podcast How Did This Get Made that watches the bad movies, they pooped all over Pluto Nash, and that one I really appreciated. Lulu the Loud, ladies and gentlemen, for background noise. Yeah, I'm calling you out, girl. What's up? See, I have two girls. I have a baby girl, and then I also have my girl. And so my girl, whose birthday it was, baby girls, we had to make up because she was a stray, and then shelter. So she has four birthdays, or five if you count them messing it up on the vet's on the vet's bill. So she has five separate birthdays, none of which are we know for a fact are true. Because the thing is, since she was a stray, already right there, anything that we do is going to be our best guess. So like we roughly know what a dog looks like when it's about 6 months old. So we called her roughly 6 months old. So our birthday for her is generally around close to whatever. It doesn't matter because they have seven of them in a given year. Apparently, they you know don't have the sense of time that we do. So we do it for ourselves. Let's be honest. Like that's one thing that was kind of brilliant about my past work is they had if you sign on to the website, and you remember and stuff, then every year on their birthday they would give a free pound of treats from the treat bar, which was just genius because they know pet parents so well. They're just like, we know you're celebrating your dog's birthday. They don't know what day it is, but you're going to do it anyway because you're you, and you love them, and you're doing it for yourself more than anybody, but also just to be nice to them, one day a year. I know you're nice to them every day of the year, whether they, appreciate it or not. But yeah, I just thought that was a brilliant idea. It's just like, yeah, you know, get you to sign up because everybody wants your info. Everybody wants your info. That's why there's membership cards and all that stuff. It's just part of your life. Just you're going to be transparent in a lot of different ways, especially when it comes to what you consume. So, at least if it's free, you know, gimmicks can go a long way when it comes to somebody accepting, giving up that level of privacy. And that was a pretty brilliant one where it's just like, we know you're going to do a little birthday celebration for the baby girl. So, hey, how about a free, pound of treats from the treat bar on the house? We know the dog loves to sniff the bar. That's why we have it out there. That's why we have shelves that are so low that a dog can just snatch it off of the shelf because obviously then you're going to feel guilty enough to pay for it. I mean, it's just marketing. I'm sure that was a meeting. I'm speculating. Don't sue me for saying that when I wasn't there. But I mean, let's be honest. It's pretty obvious that somebody's going to be like, well, we want to utilize every bit of space, so put it all the way down to the ground. And then somebody maybe spoke up and they're like, well, but what if the dog takes it and it's just like, well, then there you go. Now has their slobber all over it. The dog obviously likes it, so win-win. I just see how that would go. And to be honest, if I was in that pitch room and I thought of it, I don't know that I wouldn't have pitched it. So I can't really poo-poo on the people that do that. So sorry, I'm looking down. I think I might be borderline anyway. But I'm acting all autistic because I'm just not even looking at you guys. And but it is because Lilu heard me talk about her, and now she's over here with her head in my lap, and she's always had this weird, like, dry skin stuff at the end of her ears. I've never been able to figure it out. Like, we've made sure that, she has, like, plenty of, like, fish oil and stuff. We changed her diet up. Um, it doesn't seem to bother her or anything. I think that just might be how she comes. I do know that she was very scrappy when she was young. So, like, maybe this is just, in a way, a little bit of scar tissue because, dogs at the end of her ears that, a couple of times. But, yeah, and isn't it so fun to deconstruct, dogs' pasts? I was just talking about that today at work. So, there was, I mean, I know that we referenced the service dog episode, that I did earlier. It wasn't about service dogs. It was, oh God, something about, deconstructing a dog's past. Like why do they act the way that they do? There has to be a reason. There was obviously a past incident, and I don't know if I've mentioned this in any other video. If I have, then oh well. I mean, it's a really interesting one where it was a book about dog training, I do believe, and so the person was like, yeah, so we had this problem dog that would go after people, but not every person. Like they were an absolute love bug, except for the people that they decided that they wanted to just eat up, and they couldn't figure out, like the similarities. So they exposed the dog to as many people as they could safely, and so, they were just like, okay, well this time, the dog went after, a black man, so maybe it was a racist owner. Nope. Okay, now this time it went after a white female, so you can cross man, you can cross black off the list. Okay, oh, this time he went after a cop. All right, so maybe like he had a police officer. Nope, because this one he went after a person in sweatpants, and so it was just all over the board. So they just couldn't figure out like what do all these people have in common? Like a hat on, no, sunglasses, no, those are common ones. Beard, no, because some were women. Like and it just kept going on and on, and then finally they had to like really deep dive. Like they talked to the person that had them before, and then they talked to the person that gave them to them. So basically, they got down to their past to when they were 6 months old. Dramatic pause for drinking. Poor dog was 6 months old and got kicked across the kicked across the room by a pizza delivery person. And ever since then, anybody that had just eaten pizza, the dog would snarl and growl because it was smelling the pizza on him. The pizza delivery person obviously smelled the most like pizza. And so now that dog had a huge suspicion of anybody that had ever, that had recently eaten pizza. And you can imagine like how often, but also how inoften that would happen. So obviously the poor dog was attacking like, one out of every 20 people. So it was frequent, but it was also so infrequent that it's like, what the heck is the connecting factor there? Um, so I mean, I don't remember like how I even got on this topic, which it's an interesting one anyway. But and I guess the takeaway from that was that the person that wrote it, the trainer, was like, you got to think like the dog. Dogs are 90% nose. So obviously the dog, was responding to a smell, whereas they were like, is it the appearance? Is it, a white person versus black person? It's like, bitch, the friggin' dog is smelling pizza, pizza, pizza. Like, could give a crap. Like, dogs are less racist than we are when it comes to that. Unless, like I said, there are some dogs that it seems like they're racist because they bark at every black guy that they see. And again, that's never on the dog. That's on their upbringing, and it's usually reflective of the person. Or, and this is where it gets hard because I've fostered and also, like adopted dogs. It's like, or the previous owner got the dog to react that way. So, I'm sorry, random person that I meet on the street. That dog's reaction has absolutely nothing to do with how I feel towards you as a person. But this is me just trying to get the dog, back to normal. So, by the way, like that's something that I feel like is so underutilized. I know that every one of these always ends up turning into kind of like a dog training podcast, but that's just, I mean, as you can tell from the fact that a third of my videos are on dogs exclusively. Weird that dogs would randomly come up in my just everyday yammering cast, but the shoot, and then I just lost the thread because I had to go off on that tangent. But yeah, now I'm on her other ear. Geez, the ends of her ears are just ridiculous. So yeah, obviously I'm a dog lover. It's gonna come to the dog stuff, but oh, okay. So it was dog training. I'll get it back. I'm gonna do that reverse. I'm gonna, baby girl. I'm gonna do that reverse thing. Sorry. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Go, please. I know. I know. Okay. Yes. Shake your head. She's shaking her head because she's trying to shake off the good feelings from me, clean out the ears. She wants some more, but she knows that I mean it, so now she's just like looking away. I'm waiting for the look back. There's the look back. No. Just because you looked back and we made eye contact, I know all your tricks. I know all your tricks, baby girl. You gonna stretch now? To buy some time? Oh, they have a million of them. They have a million of the buy the time things. Hers are itching at her ears or collar, and that's a common one with dogs. Itching at the ears or collar is one where the collar is something that is unnatural that we give them to put on their neck. So eventually they get used to it. In fact, they feel naked without it after a while. But initially they are always scratching at it, where it's just like, can you get this thing off of me? There's a thing that's hung around my neck. It's stuck. What if I keep growing? You know what I mean? Like, I think that dogs actually have that instinct in them where everybody's seen the horrific, fish in a 6-pack plastic holder. Um, so I think that any animal, like, if they have something around their neck, especially at a young age where they're not supposed to, they try to get it off. It makes sense. But then they learn later on that even though they're used to it and their neck is not itchy, if you're trying to get them to do something, they're just like, oh, well, we always paused before when I did a little scratch, 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 scratch. So I'm going to use that as a stall tactic. And it's one that as long as she's not being ridiculous about it. Uh-oh. I'm out of focus. There we go. We're back in focus. Who's even watching this anyway? But, yeah, they do the, scritch, scritch, scritch. And, I'll allow it because usually it only goes for a couple of seconds when they realize, no, he ain't budging. But, sometimes they go a bit over dramatic with it. So, yeah. That's one. The stretching one is another big one. That one I don't mind. That one I kind of get annoyed at, but I don't mind in the morning because, yeah, they've been in the kennel, all night. So when they do big stretchies, I mean, that's something I encourage, and I encourage you to encourage. Not only are they stretching, and that's healthy for them, but also that might be an opportune time to teach them upward dog and downward dog, or cobra, or basically it looks like they're doing yoga. Like, I mean, there's a reason why it's called downward dog. We got the stretch from them, so basically they're doing yoga. If you can get them to start doing that on command, the easiest way to train a dog to do something is you just reward them when they're already doing it, and then pretty soon you put a name to it, and then pretty soon they can do it on command. It's so much more complicated than that, but that is basically the 1, 2, 3 of how dog training works. There you go. Again, I always just get it, and I lost the thread from earlier, and I might come back to it later on, but it's probably not going to happen, and I apologize. And maybe one of the few times that I'll actually rewatch it, so that way the next cast I can continue that thought. But I know that I had started something, dog training related, and then completely lost the thread, and gave you something else instead, and hopefully that was nice. But if you expect me to, circle back to it, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet when it comes to being able to um, reconnect where I was. That's like a 20-year vet stand-up comedian skill. Like, they need to have like a set in their head, and then they can, like, ride with the energy of the crowd and get off on tangents, but they have to remember what they were originally talking about. Some of them do it better than others. Some of them need help from the audience. Some of them flounder. But I'm obviously not a professional anything, and so I am not going to be able. But I do know my mind well enough. See, I'm halfway there. I know when So in the instance of, like, if it was a live thing going on, I would know if I should take the extra couple of seconds to wait, pause, harp on it, or if it is just time to move the F on because it's not going to happen from the brain. So I've learned enough about myself to know that much. So there's improvements going on at least. But it is definitely a learning curve, and much like everything else in life. So, oh yeah, so one of the things that I'm playing with, if you could tell, is the newest ring. She has bought me 3 now, and one of them I lost genuinely at work. It was one of those things where we never got it sized, so it wasn't the perfect fit. But I gestured it flung ting 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 ting, and it went underneath a shelf somewhere, one direction or another. I believe I had an animal on me at the time, so I'm not entirely. I was more focused on the animal not dropping off than the ring, but I can't remember the exact specifics. But I basically lost it underneath one of the shelves. But the direction it could have possibly bounced, it meant like it was underneath, one of 4 different directions. And I spent, and to my coworkers' credit, they spent most of the rest of the day scouring underneath for it. We never end up finding it. So my girl bought me not another one, but two other ones. Um, you know, like kind of jokingly, but also just kind of just like like just in case. And I, over the course of time, managed to lose both of those as well. I believe in house. I was relatively certain that it made it back home. That it wasn't anything that came off like at work or in the car. I usually only take it off, you know, um, washing hands, and so if it's going to be anywhere, it's usually on top of a sink. And if it was work, I mean, I would have remembered it, immediately. I mean, I'm a lot more self conscious. Like at home, I'm just like, I often take it off to go to bed. So, there's less like, and I do some, the dishes and all that stuff. So, to be honest, I have no idea. I strongly had believed that it was in the kitchen. I mean, but we pulled out, the fridge and everything. So, let's just say that I'm a loser of rings. So, while we were in the mall, I did get this for myself where it's a silicone one where I can have that during the day. And also, I had that naive thing where it's like, well, obviously, if you buy one now, then the old one is going to turn up because that's how it always works anytime that you try and buy something to replace something that you lost. And so far, no good. I have not found the other ring yet, but I'm digging the silicone ring. So if you have a similar problem as me, and you love wearing a ring, but you just don't want to uh, damage or lose or whatever during the day. One of my biggest problems with the ring is normally why I would lose it is either I would take it off or it was because I was playing with it all the time, and then as I was playing with it, then I would drop it. With metal, I mean, it just doesn't feel as natural and like form fitting. So it was always something to like just kind of mess with. And I've always been very tactile when it comes to that. So yeah, like I would just mess with it. In fact, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the feeling of being able to mess with a ring on my finger. But oftentimes that's when it would get flung away. Now, luckily, anytime that I was just kind of messing with it, you know, and it dropped, I was able to find it. But um, that's just to show you like how easy it was for me to lose it. I do believe that it was a time that I took it off intentionally, to do dishes and stuff. But um, with this one though, with the silicone, yeah, it's it's gonna naturally hug your finger. But also the thing is like like when your other fingers like hit against it, they're not as no like especially if it's an ill-fitted ring. When you put your other two fingers against the one that has the ring on it, or one finger if you have it on your pinky or whatever. Well, the it just it would hurt after a while. Like if you had to clench your fist multiple times and you had an ill-fitted ring, I mean, like eventually it's gonna really dig into that muscle tissue on that part of the finger. So this one, obviously I barely even notice it's there, so I don't play with it. It stays on. It's it's gonna be great for a daytime one, and then obviously, yeah, if I hopefully could find friggin' old ones or just get a new one of the metallic rings, that's a good one to do during the nighttime. But um, yeah, so just gonna pass that along. It's something I didn't even realize was a thing, and now that I know this is a thing, I am loving it. So that's another non-sponsor, but a very non-specific one where it's like, all right, so shout out to all the Silicon Ring member, ring creators. Jesus Christ, can't talk today. All of them. I'm not even going to name a specific company because the people that I got it from, not the best experience. So I, hmm, I don't even know if I want to get into it. I've been in sales for so long. You know, I know that people get wishy washy, and therefore you can close a lot more if you are a high pressured salesman. I get it. So if you're successful, your default is going to be high pressured, and you're going to hound and hound and hound the person till you either drive them out of your store so that you can pay attention to the next one, or you're going to eventually force them into a sale, and you know that that's the kind of person that is just like, well, they'll tell themselves that they will, look, if we get buyer's remorse, which we will, then we should return it within the return policy. And the person that you had to forceful wishy-wash into getting the sale is also the person that is least likely to do the return. So if you get programmed to be that way, I don't fault you as a person. I mean, yeah, you're losing some morality and stuff. I've been there, and it happens. It's just, um, I have a hard time faulting anybody for the situations that have made them become the person that they are. Some are unforgivable, but um, when it comes to becoming a high pressure salesperson, the proof's in the numbers. So I just hate that now that I've been scrapping and saving and living paycheck to paycheck for so long, and you know for me liquid would be considered like if I wanted to consider myself liquid, that would mean that I have $1,000 in the bank. That's liquid to me, and even that grand is already probably be spoken for. I just haven't sorted out the bills yet. But higher people than me, that say that they're liquid, that means that they could like literally spend millions of dollars at a time, and it wouldn't really affect the bottom line because they have so much just coming in and going out. Whereas people like me have to like really consider each possibility. So like my version of liquid is that I have $1,000 in the bank. Huge numbers. Like dude, I'm in quadruple digits. Like dude, yeah, that's right. So, um, when we went into the jewelry store, basically any of the rings that she showed us, I could have technically bought. Um, Even if I had to, do a payment plan or whatever, like I could have easily bought. Money was no object. We went in there on a whim, and just because we had been talking about the whole ring situation, and so while we were there, you know, I was thinking, hey, you got me three, might as well get you one too. So that sounds so you know what I'm saying? Like I am so paraphrasing. Like that is not wow. The energy of what I just said. It's so funny. I've said so many ums and so's and you knows that anybody else self-respecting would have turned this off and been like, all right, let's start again because that was just horrible. But I plowed through. But then when I was just like, yeah, whatever, I'll get your ring because you get me three. Like that is obviously so not the whole sentiment, but that's what's funny is that that's the part that sounded so bad that I almost wanted to stop and start over again, even though I just don't have the time. Like I'm saying, this is gonna be a very rough cut, and maybe it'll embarrass me enough to the point where I'll just start to either bite off enough that I can chew, or just step up to the game and start pre-recording so much more that I can then start doing, binge break, binge break, binge break. Um, but yeah, so one of the first things out of her mouth was, I'm not a huge fan of diamonds, and left it at that, which I admire her for because, all right, so my girl doesn't like diamonds. I'm going to tell you guys, not her, because, but because of the whole thing about diamonds. Like, they're way overpriced for how the ease is of mining. There's, people getting, slaved and shot, basically all blood diamond, like all the shit about diamonds, you know, basically is why she doesn't like diamonds. It's just like, ooh, it's sparkly. Look, if you use it as, a secondary stone and you don't like, overcharge out the wazoo, you know what I mean? Like you can have like a nice, emerald, like with some like, diamonds around it and it's just like a $300, ring. I mean, something like that is just understandable, but she's just like, like if it's like, a big diamond, high profile, and then, you're charging out the wazoo, it's just like, in a way, I kind of agree that it should be that high, considering, some of the people that might have died over the ridiculous conditions and stuff, but, like, let's be honest, you could lab create almost any of these stones, and if you were a jeweler with a little, monocle thing, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Um, if anything, the more imperfections it has, the more likely it is that it's a genuine friggin' artifact. So, right away, we're just putting a freeze hold on stuff. Like, we're making it a ridiculous price because we can. Because we somehow fooled the public into thinking that, that's a worthy and status, inducing and all that stuff. So she hates diamonds, is what I'm trying to say. And then what does the salesperson do for the rest of the hour? I think that we ended up being there, and we were there for a while. Um, Short towards diamond stuff, and so it infuriated both of us. I'll be honest, I did still end up getting the silicone ring, for myself, and then well, the when my girl had finally steered the salesperson over to the actual colorful gems, um, the rubies and the emeralds and all that stuff, um, to that area. Well, her birth month, is this month, so we've had turtles show up throughout our entire life. Like early on, we had gone to a shop that had like these metal turtles that you hang up on the wall, and then later on, it was actually when she was doing the road trip with me from Tucson to live with her, and um, we were. I don't know if you've ever done a road trip across the country, but obviously it's a true test of the relationship, but also, you know, God, it's a true test, but also a great friggin' exercise. Test and exercise, it went hand in hand. It was one of those things where it's just like, dude, we can multitask if we really want to put ourselves to it. Like on a weekly basis, we have a hard time maneuvering around in the shower real talk right now, like just real talk. We have a hard time maneuvering in the shower sometimes, but when it comes to coordinating a road trip, like we got it kind of nailed down to a science. Drive, pull over for the gas, walk the dog. Like we get it down, and I attribute that largely to when she helped me move over here. So it's astounding. I think that coordinating that, it's like there's always going to be stuff that you can work on, and but that was definitely a true test of passage. Have I lost the thread again? Son of a bee. Is it really going to be that kind of a day where the people that are watching are screaming at the screen, where it's just like if it's a Jeopardy thing where it's just like the what is yada yada? What is yada yada? Oh my God, it's right there. Or oh God, especially Wheel of Fortune. I'll be honest. That oh, okay. It's funny that I just abandoned the previous topic and I'm gonna get like even more emotional about something as trivial as Wheel of Fortune, but we're gonna get into it. So Wheel of Fortune is one where I was always, pop culture spelling, savvy, whether I wanted to be or not. Like I'll be honest, most of my life I could care less that I was decent at correctly spelling a thing, and then years later, it turns into a point of contention for a lot of people where they're going, all right, you spell your wrong. And, I very rarely spell your wrong in my life, but, there's your and your, and I think your, not to mention there, and there. So, it's something I was always kind of naturally good at, but it was just so funny where that became a point of like people knocking other people for having a lack of understanding with that, and I, it's weird how like I wouldn't have felt superior about it until other people were feeling superior, and I was just like, hey, that's something I'm naturally good at. It's not something that I put time and effort into, Like I didn't spend like days that I could have been spending outside and playing inside studying how to spell certain stuff. It's just something I naturally picked up, and it almost like minimalizes the people that weren't naturally good at it, and they studied their freaking ass off on. And so I I don't know. I mean, that's something that's always just kind of bugged me. Where I don't know if that's a lot of where imposter syndrome comes from. I'm sure you haven't heard of imposter syndrome, but basically, it's like if you do get good at a thing, you feel like that you're just fooling everybody into thinking that you're good at a thing. You're not actually that good at a thing. You just gotten good at fooling those people because you're not really good. Well, it's called imposter syndrome, and it's almost certainly going to happen. Like, there's almost no way that it's not going to happen because you would have to have been the person that, like, all right, let's just say, like, plays on the piano. All right, so first time at the piano, if you go clank, 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 and then you're just like, yeah, it sounded great. Well, you're a narcissist, and you're always going to think that you're great. Now, if you play it the first time, ping, plong, ping, plong, 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 and it sounds like absolute crap, which it does, then you're like, oh my god, that sounded like crap. I have to do better. I'll try again. And then you try again, try again, try again, try again. Well, you've already trained your brain to be that way. So you're always going to think that it's not good enough. And that's how you got great. And yes, you are great. But take solace in the fact that it's just like, well, now I want to freaking put a bullet in my head because I got to the place where I thought that I wanted to be and I'm still not satisfied. To get to the place where you want to be, you're not going to be satisfied. Um, Sometimes that weird meta thing of like just realizing that and accepting it can be the solace that you get. It isn't what you hoped it would be. You thought that you were going to get this wave washing over you, like oh, this is what heaven feels like. I'm there. Um, it's probably never going to come, but don't be discouraged about that. Like, feel inspired and happy, and yes, satisfied that that that's how you were wired. It's admirable. It's not natural and easy to come hardwired like that. If you grew up in a soft life, the easiest thing to do is to continue the soft life. Like, if you get this way because of just sheer stubborn mindedness, or if because of a personal tragedy, um, I'm not saying that either, that, hey, yay, you had a personal tragedy. But, if you could look at a bright side of it, then that's where that drive came from. Like, that's why early on I tried to just basically realize that I should be grateful that I haven't had too many serious tragedies directly affect me. I've I've encountered plenty of badness in my life. Um, that it's not enough directly. That's what I'm saying. It's just like, all right. I don't know if I want to put it this way, but it's like, if you get raped, you have all the sympathy from anybody that finds that out. If you happen to witness a rape, then not only aren't you going to be considered like, oh, how horrible for you for witnessing a rape, the first thing that you're going to get bombarded with is questions of like, well, did you, go in there and stop it with kung fu, or did you like, call the cops, or did you just stand there frozen, like not knowing, what to do? Sorry to get like seriously like, deep and stuff, but it's just you let me rant long enough, it's going to get dark eventually because uh, um, but yeah, so it's like it's weird that the stuff that I've gone through that has caused me to experience enough darkness in life to have a well-rounded perspective. Um, if you were told the story directly, you might not sympathize as much as another story that you were told directly. Is, I guess, what I'm saying. So just consider that um, it's not a contest where the amount of pain that you've suffered has made you the weirdo that you are. Because somebody else might be less of a weirdo and have suffered more. And that's them. That shouldn't you shouldn't beat yourself up and judge yourself against them just because you feel like, well, I should be, way funnier than I am because it seems like comedians always had a hard life and I had a hard life and I'm not as funny, or vice versa, where it's just like I haven't had enough of a hard life, but I would absolutely love to be a professional comedian, and I want to prove that that's able to do. It's like just figure out a way to fit it in and or obsess with it enough that you feel like you put in enough effort where if it happens it happens, if it doesn't it doesn't. Why am I giving advice? I'm not successful, so a successful person should give advice, and any successful person that you talk to says, well, what I know you can't teach. So why did I even wax into the philosophical, like, oh, I actually know what I'm talking about. So ah, oh my god, this is a shit show. I fully realize that and admit it, but this is the clip that is going to be brought up as often as possible by me and by anybody that wants to try and embarrass me into doing a better job and planning ahead a little bit. Or I don't have to plan ahead once I actually get good at it, but it's just like that's not where I am at right now. And it's funny that a motorcycle going by was equivalent to Lilo the Lab. Has it really only been 40 minutes? I mean, I feel like if anybody's still watching right now, they're not going to be too upset that I wrap it up because it feels like longer than an hour that I usually would do. And this is just another example of the fact that I think I need to do better because I could, bust out an hour. I could do 2 half hours, and then I was just loose with the rules. But you know what? I'll close with this. So life is freaking weird, and the only way for it to be less weird is for it to be weirder first. This sounds like a horrible Carlin bit, but that's the only way I can put it. Um, I think the only way it's almost like we're born with this desire for life to be making sense and easy, and then when it does, we're not happy. When it doesn't, we're challenged and we hate it. But in the breaks in between, we're at our most joyous and productive and complete. So just keep doing. There's an animal out there. Maybe I should save it. Oh, that's not a bad one. Hey, there you go. There's a little Easter egg. You get to see the moment that I thought of the thing that you're going to find out in a later episode. How about that? What an unsatisfying Easter egg. Jesus Christ, Nick. I mean, can't you just do something better than that? I mean, you're already ending early, and then you're going to end on something like that, where it's just like, oh, I just thought of something. And the funny thing is, since I haven't done it, you don't even know for a fact that I'm actually going to do it. This might be one of those unresolved, like plot holes from a show that didn't get picked up. Like I compare myself to that. So, all right, let's end on something positive. You know something that I used to always do, which I haven't in a while, is I used to hang my head off of a bed and look at the world in a new situation where the floor was the ceiling was the floor. It looked like I had an entire dance floor because the ceiling's usually pretty bare compared to the floor, where it looked like I had an entire dance floor, but I also couldn't jump up too often because I would bang my head on something. And I do remember a specific time where I was, we had gotten the word that we were going to be deployed. We went for something to out process. So basically, like, we were, at our houses, we were like, oh, you have to go overseas. And then you go to a fort for, months to, um, you know, I guess wait for your flight and get paperwork in order. I don't know why you had to wait that long. But anyway, so you stay there for a bit and you're allowed to get phone calls, back home and stuff. So I remember being that messed up. It was just like, oh my God, what's going on? It's such a transitional thing. Like, I'm still here in the States, but I'm not going to be soon. And like, what's going on? Like, I'm in a bunk area with like a bunch of other guys. And so you could, talk on the phone. And so I usually chose a time to talk on the phone where I didn't usually run into interference with like, oh no, no, you go, you go. So I really needed to have this phone call. I can't even remember because it never ended up happening. But the person was on the phone before me, so I was just like, all right, well, they should be wrapping up shortly. So I waited and I waited and I waited, and I think half an hour in, when I was like, Jesus Christ, all right, they don't give a crap that they see me waiting for the phone. So it was, I was tired, I was weird, and I was, I did the hanging my head thing for the first time in a long time. Um, I put my head over a mattress and I, looked upside down and I just looked at the whole barracks with everybody in their bunk beds, sleeping upside down, kind of like bats or like, from that, one Star Wars movie in the clouds, hanging up. Um, I just remember like, looking at that and just like, to this day, I think that it was just like me trying to get a little bit of my childhood back where I realized that I was like, in barracks about to, go to war. It's not really war. I mean, it's a war on oil. Let's be honest. I mean, it's not a war on weapons of mass destruction. Now that it's, I mean, statute of limitations. I mean, can we admit it? Like, I found out only once I was already in it and overseas, and I felt disillusioned, and that's why I haven't been back. But let's be honest. The intentions are often not what they tell you when you're signing on the paper. So anyway, like that was one of the last times that I actually did that, you know, looking upside down thing. And even if you're just this jaded adult, give it a shot. Like try and, hang your head over something so that like, you're looking upside down. So if you're outside, that means that the ground is the ceiling. And if you don't like cling onto the grass, that means that you're going to drop off the face of the earth and just fall forever. Um, Kind of like that episode in the N64 Zelda. You know what I'm talking about. If the few that know, um, if you're inside, then that means that the floor is the ceiling, the ceiling is the floor. So that means the ceiling's really busy, and so you might have to, when you're walking around, duck your head to avoid certain shelves. And if you jump, you might want to make sure that you don't knock your head against the TV. That kind of stuff. So I like revisiting the past. The little things that made us wonder as a kid. For instance, I have only occasionally gotten drunker than I did when I spun myself around really fast. You know what I'm talking about? 7-year-old me putting their head on a baseball bat on the ground and then spinning around it and then trying to get to a target. I wobbled more than I did, you know, when I was drunk trying to do the same thing. Sorry, I got the hiccups now. It's probably a good time to stop. I get the hiccups. It's around that time. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Hopefully, I can keep the schedule. If not, I apologize.